Hello everybody, I'm MOZHZHERI, the founder of the MOZHZHERI brand. This is a professional tool for manicurists and pedicurists. We are also an international online school. And in honor of the launching of our new online course for masters, we have decided to give you a gift: a detailed video lesson on cutting the cuticle. Enjoy! Let's move on to the next step. And the next step is cutting the cuticle. Cuticle cutting is one of the most controversial topics in manicure. Masters are divided into two categories. Some cut the cuticle all their lives without any problem, while others say that the cuticle cannot be cut. That is, if you cut a cuticle, it will grow even more and the client may get an infection. But let's figure out what really happens in this situation. At this stage, the technique plays a huge role. How you went through the previous stages of manicure, and of course the tool. Since at the very beginning we have already studied the structure of the skin, therefore it's not difficult to guess why the masters have cuts, wounds, injuries, and the client can get an infection accordingly. We have been working in this technique for many years, cutting the cuticle of our clients. We have dozens of clients a day who come specifically for our manicure, for the MOZHZHERI manicure with cuticle cutting by using tweezers, and they don't have problems like infections or bleeding. During our manicure, they do not feel any pain, and therefore the number of our clients increases year after year. You can hurt your client with any tool, even with this harmless orange stick. The main thing is to know the technique and follow it precisely. Be sure to think about every stage, think carefully about each move. The first step before cutting is to work with the pusher. That is, we need to open the pocket again with the pusher. We place a pusher and we carefully move from left to right. We need to make sure that the cuticle is not stuck together and that the tool fits freely under the cuticle. That is, this pusher, it has a small recess here. It goes approximately this distance under the cuticle. Our pusher should easily go under the cuticle to this depth. If you succeed doing this, and after the previous stage you should succeed, then everything is fine. You can move on to the next stage. This is a direct cut of the cuticle. We will show the cut using our instrument. These are tweezers. The first thing we see is that the blades are open here. We need to close them. That is, we take these tweezers by these areas and press them like tweezers. And our blades close a little. That's enough. Why do you need to do this? The fact is that if we place these tweezers with such an open canvas, then we will not be able to target the cuticle in detail. It will be difficult for us. We won't understand exactly what we are cutting off. If we close our blade like this, then we will be able to control exactly what area we are cutting now. Therefore, the first thing we do is close the canvases. The next stage is to place our tweezers under the cuticle. That is, we need to make sure that the lower sheet of the blade goes under the cuticle. Here is the bottom sheet. It should be under the cuticle. Now, here we see the cuticle, and everything else is the living skin. We draw the cuticle itself with a blue felt tip pen. This is something that we can cut off. And we know for sure 100% that it will not bleed. The client will not be in pain because there are no blood vessels or nerve endings in the cuticles. All that is near it are rollers. Here we have blood vessels, nerve endings, and living skin. And what do we see here? Now the tips are directed into the living skin. That is, we see that the tips of the blades here go straight into the living skin. If we cut it now, there is a possibility of bleeding. Therefore, our next stage is to unravel the ends. Then they looked there. Now we turn them a little bit here. And now we see that the tip of the blades follows the curve of the cuticle. And this is very important. Only after we have made sure that the tips of the blades are looking here, in this direction, only in this case can we make a cut. They were like this. And now we close the blade completely. We close the blade completely and we cut off the first piece of our cuticle. What do we do for the next step? Everything is the same. As soon as we cut, we remove our scissors. Now they are open again. Now we need to close them a little again to aim. We close them and place them with the bottom sheet. We need to put the scissors under the cuticle. As soon as the bottom sheet is under the cuticle, we look and see that here the tips of the scissors are directed into the living skin. We need to expand them a little. That is, we unfold them a little. Now they were like this. We are unfolding them here. This is already the second picture, and we clearly see that the upper canvas looks into the cuticle line, and the lower canvas is also located under the cuticle. That is, we practically do not see it. And only when we are convinced that we are about to cut correctly do we close the scissors completely. And our next section is cut off. In the next stage, we do the same thing. We take the scissors, close them a little, put them down, then unfold them a little and cut them off. Here we have all these stages. The next rule that you need to know is when we cut the cuticle, the blade of the scissors must be perpendicular to the cuticle. That is, here we have a finger, we cut the cuticle, and our scissors stand like this. What could be the mistake? If we put them like this, if we place the blade like this, then we will also cut off the living skin, and respectively our cut will turn out to be uneven, and we can cut off excessively. Therefore, it's very important for us to hold the blade perpendicular to the cuticle. That is, we put them like this. There is no need to tilt it like this onto the rollers. The next life hack: after we cut the cuticle, we must also move it to the left so that we can see. To make it in the easiest way, we first cut it off, then we take it, pick it up a little, and move it to the left. Thus, we have an overview here, and it will be much easier for us to cut. That is, it will be much easier for us to make the next segment. We put it with the blade again, close them again, and take them, hook them a little. That is, we do not cut off the piece and we move it to the side. The next rule is that we overlap each of our cuts. Let's have a look. When we make the first cut, it is such a small segment. We also make the next cut starting from this point. That is, we do not start from here, but we start approximately by retreating a couple of millimeters. Let's make the next cut. We make the next cut again from this point with an overlap, and so on. Thus, we get the so-called fir tree on the cuticle. Here, you can see it here, it's clearly visible here. As you can see, such notches remain. Due to this particular technique, cutting the cuticle with an overlap, the cuticle itself remains smooth and burrs no longer appear. And all other stages, such as grinding the cuticle, occur very easily. Let's carry on. We have a couple more schemes left. We put our scissors back. Now you can see that the scissors are looking a little here into the living skin. We tilt them so that the tips clearly look inside the cuticle. Next, we take it, make a cut, and bend the cuticle a little so that it goes to the left. Thus, we cut the entire cuticle, and now we have the last cut left. What can we do here to avoid cutting our cuticle endlessly? We must place our scissors in such a way that this cuticle is in the middle and the tips of the scissors close in the air. That is, we cut off this part, place the scissors here so that they do not catch excess skin, and the tips of the scissors close in the air. This part of the scissors will be used here. And the remaining tips will close in the air. This way we won't cut off too much. The thing is that in our technique, we do not cut off the client's rollers. We only cut the cuticle, and not all of it. We cut so that a small strip of the cuticle remains, which prevents the cuticle from growing even more. We don't cut until there is blood and red ridges. We only cut off the keratinized area. The cuticle that remains, we have a small little cuticle thread left after the cut, is completely invisible to the client. It keeps the cuticle from growing even more. In this way, in our technique, the cuticle grows less. Of course, if you cut the client, if you trim the rollers, you will trim the entire cuticle here. You will just cut completely, just cut off a huge amount, cut the roller here. Of course, the client will have redness. They will have micro wounds, and there, of course, an infection may occur. But if you do everything carefully, according to this technique, I assure you everything will be wonderful and your manicure will look truly perfect. Let's look at a couple more schemes and revise everything. The first thing which we need to do is, of course, to open the pocket under the cuticle. That is, we need to check if our cuticle is stuck. I took this photo specifically for this. I turned the cuticle out like this, and here you see a white shelf. This is all the keratinized part that can be cut off. Here it is. Look how small it is. Here, this is our cuticle that will cut. I turned it around in such a way to show that there are no glues here. That is, as one might say, seems to be hanging in the air. If you can do this, then everything is fine. This means you can cut the cuticle. Now let's have a look. Here the blade is open and it will be difficult for us to aim. To do this, we need to close the blade. That is, we close the blade a little, approach the skin and look please. Here, if I make a cut, can you see where the scissors are pointing? They are pointing directly at the living skin. If I cut now, I will bleed and it will hurt the client. Therefore, we need to change the position of our blades, and we will place them directly along the growth of the cuticle. Now let's look at where the blade is pointing at. You can only cut it like this. Here the tips of the blades are directed perfectly along the cuticle, and we also see that the blade is perpendicular to the cuticle. That is, we don't place them like this. We don't put them on a roller like this, but they stand like this, perpendicular to the cuticle. And now we make the cut. We have made the cut, and immediately we bend our scissors like this. First we have made the cut, and then we bend the scissors so that this segment goes to the left. We need to constantly swipe the cuticle to the left for us to have an accurate view from here. And we will not start the next cut exactly from this point, but we will overlap it a little. Then we cut off the next segment. We see that the tips are directed correctly. We cut it and immediately we bend it to the left. And straight after that we make the next cut. We bend it again, place it again. Here we have almost reached the left side. That is, we see that here the blade is perpendicular to the cuticle and the tips point exactly along the cuticle. Here we have cut them off, we get this to the side and cut them off as well. And because we overlap each cut, it curls up like this, our cuticle, which we cut off. Here, as we see, each time we bend our cuticle to the left. It is also fashionable to do this with a regular brush, but it's more convenient to do it this way without using a brush. You just need to get used to it. For the next segment, we are almost reaching this side. Look, we don't cut absolutely everything here. We cut only a small thread of the cuticle and then we turn around correctly so that the ends are directed in the appropriate way, because our cuticle is not straight, it's arched, and we need to clearly repeat the bend of the cuticle at each stage. That's why we do not make large sections, we make many small sections. This is where we cut it off. Here we see how we cut it, and we move on to the next stage. The next stage is very important. Here we need to finish the cut correctly. You see, here is the cuticle. And here is our blade. Can you see it? Here you need to apply the blades to the cuticle. Put them there and make sure that the tips close in the air so that they do not go into the skin. You can see that the tips will close in the air, not in the skin, and like so we make the cut. There is no need to pull like that or do anything else. We just set it calmly, applied it to the skin and made the cut, and then removed the scissors. There you go. And in this case, you will not have a burr on the left side if you finish the cut correctly. If you still have a burr, you can also try to cut it off, as you have done it again. For example, if you still have a burr here, you finish the cut incorrectly, it's okay, it happens. You do the same thing. Apply the scissors to this burr, apply them well to the skin and make a cut. Just make sure that the tips of the scissors close in the air again, and then you will finish the cut correctly. You can see Since we made each cut overlapping, we formed this little so-called dragon from the cuticle. Let's take another look at what an overlap cut is. Here I will show on paper in large sections, but our cuticle is small, therefore we need to make very small sections accordingly. We cut. Here we cut. And we start our next segment from here. We do not place the scissors here, but here, at the beginning of the first segment, and thus we make a cut. Of course, on the cuticle it will be completely different, but this is such an example that the cuticle will remain the same with the notches that we cut off, and the roller itself remains smooth. The first time you make a cut, you of course should clearly control each stage. But as soon as you learn to do each stage slowly, talking it through to yourself, as soon as you start to succeed, you can already increase the speed and do it faster. At first it seems that there are so many nuances to consider. Yes, indeed it's true. But the main thing is to learn to do each stage slowly and carefully. You have scissors, open blades. You need to close them a little, then you need to put them perpendicular, then you need to cut them off. See where the tips are so that the lower sheet of the blades is under the cuticle. Everything needs to be taken into account. But as soon as you learn to do it slowly and correctly, it means that in the future you will learn to do it much faster, and it will no longer cause any difficulties for you. Well, of course, if you do everything quickly, in a hurry, you will end up with burrs, then you will try to polish these burrs, then you will have to cut something off. It takes a lot longer, and the result in the end will not be as ideal as you would like. Therefore, you definitely need to try, constantly learn, and only then will it be possible to get good results. This lesson is only a part of our large project, where every master can become proficient in the technique of the Russian manicure. If you also want to understand all the stages of our Russian manicure in detail, welcome to our new online course. You can find the information how to purchase this course below this video.